Welcome back. My name is Chris, and in this video, we're going to be doing a product review on NetSuite. So this is intended for anyone who's shopping around for an ERP system and trying to determine if NetSuite is the right option for you. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to go into the system. I'm going to show you some specific things that it can do, and more generally talking about the major aspects of any business, such as accounting, inventory management, reporting, CRM, and how NetSuite functions along these areas. If you've read anything on NetSuite or maybe even gotten a demo, you've probably been told that NetSuite can do everything under the sun, moon, and stars. And while NetSuite can do a lot, there are certain things that it's good at and things that it's bad at. So I want to give a more honest look at what this product can do, what it can't, what are some of its limitations, and how you can actually shore up some of its weaknesses. So that's what we're going to be doing here. And before we actually dive into the system, I also just want to say, if you're looking to get an actual education in NetSuite, you want to learn how the product works, I have almost 20 courses at this point diving into NetSuite and hundreds of videos on this exact YouTube channel. So if that's the route you're trying to go, by all means, check out any one of my courses or YouTube videos and get a much deeper understanding of NetSuite itself. But assuming you're just shopping around at the moment, let's take a look at NetSuite. All right, so here we are in what's called the NetSuite Dashboard. This is like your home base when you first log in. And just to orient you, if we come up here on the top right, you can see I'm logged in as Carol Morgan. So the employee comes into the system and they come in with a particular role. So you can see here, I'm logged in as a controller. So because I'm logged in as a controller, NetSuite comes out of the box with these dashboards pre-configured with all kinds of analytic portlets. These little windows that we see here, are basically all configured based on the role that I'm entering the system in. So as a controller, it comes out of the box with all of these different windows providing tools and information based on my role. So if I was a controller, if I was an inventory management and accounts receivable clerk, the dashboard would be entirely configured, again, out of the box, without any other customizations for my particular role. So you can see things like reminders. So these are going to be things that a controller would want to see coming up for them. Maybe they have certain types of bills they need to approve, etc. Those all come up on the left here. We've got various metrics like KPI meters. Down here, we have a full listing of key performance indicators with graphs. We can configure any of these things the way that we want. If we want to add certain KPIs, take off other ones, all of that is very customizable. These are also very drag and drop friendly. So if I wanted to move these things around, consolidate it all to just be one column, if I want a very clean look, I can do whatever I want on my dashboard. Scrolling down here, we've just got an enormous amount of out-of-the-box information that we can utilize with NetSuite. So that is one of the benefits. It definitely comes I wouldn't say pre-configured. You do need to go through the implementation process, but there are a lot of things that they try to give you a leg up by having them already configured. So once you set things up the way you want, you put in your information, you can take advantage of a lot of these things. Some other ERPs really require you to build a system from the ground up. So that is one of the definite benefits of this. And one thing I should just say overall, when you're dealing with NetSuite, this is what I would consider a major positive of NetSuite, is the fact that it is highly customizable. Now, customization is a spectrum, right? It's a range. And when you're comparing it to some of the low end, the lightweight ERP options, or you could say in many instances, they're not even full-fledged ERPs, things like QuickBooks, Xero, Zoho, things like that, they really have very limited options when it calls to customizations. And then at a higher level, things like Acumatica, Epicor, Infor, Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, those have some customization capabilities. I would say that NetSuite's benefit is that it has more robust customization capabilities than most of the other ERP systems. Now, there are other systems that do have more flexibility. You can get more into the weeds with the customizations, but they require more extensive knowledge of the system and oftentimes requires full-fledged programmers or developers. So that's where NetSuite kind of threads the needle. It's in that sweet spot of robust customization capabilities, but can be done by someone with a relatively low IT knowledge. In fact, and I'm not just trying to kind of hawk my own materials, but with my courses and my free YouTube videos, I can easily walk through even the most novice NetSuite users on how to build workflows, customize forms, configure dashboards. All of these can be done relatively easily with no programming experience. So when you're dealing with a lot of the larger ERP systems, it requires extensive knowledge and experience with the system, even to be able to do small changes. Even though you could say they're more customizable, they require a lot more expertise. And then again, on the lower end, you're just far more limited in terms of what you can customize. So NetSuite is right there in the middle, and I think it does, I would argue, the best job in terms of giving you that flexibility with a low expertise needed as an entry barrier. So that's one thing you should keep in mind. Now let's talk about from a reporting standpoint. That's one of the first things people ask about is how can NetSuite handle reporting and analytics? And there's really three major tools that NetSuite gives you for reporting purposes. So let's take a look at those rapidly. If we come up to reports, the first one is just reports, what that's called in NetSuite. So let's come down here to financial and let's open up an income statement. So these are kind of out of the box reports that you're going to get, often financial reports, although you can have other ones. And they are, I would say, not highly customizable. You can technically build them out, add various features to them, but compared to, these are things you could generally just do in Excel, and Excel has way more capabilities when it comes to modifying them, adding highlights, doing whatever you want with the reports. You want to stay with Excel if you're going to be doing that. If you just want to take a look at what your income statement is, then NetSuite has this as a tool. Same thing with balance sheets, cash flow statements. You got lots of different reports, and that is the first tool. The second tool, which is, I would say, more commonly used, is saved searches. Now, this might be known as lists. You might know this as pre-configured searches. There's a lot of different terminology for this, but the idea is this is a search that you have specifically crafted to pull in the exact information you want. So those are called saved searches. And if we come down here, we can take a look at some that have already been constructed. So for example, AP aging. That's a commonly utilized search. We can open that up and you can see here we've got a list of the clients on the left, and we can see within time frames 1 to 30 days, 30 to 60, etc., what is due from an accounts payable standpoint. So this is a perfect example of a search. Now, if we wanted to customize this, we want to add additional columns, we want to add highlights, bold them, reconfigure them, take out columns, whatever we want to do, all of that can be done within Edit This Search. And for that reason, these are the most commonly used analytic tool in NetSuite because you have so much flexibility with them. I would say they're not hard to use, but they're also not particularly easy. There is a little bit of a learning curve when first dealing with the Save Search tool. Again, I have plenty of videos to kind of groove you in on how they work, but just understand they're not just you walk in and immediately know how to use them. You do have to get familiar with them, but you can do a lot with them. There's quite a bit of capabilities there. So that's the second reporting tool. The third one is Suite Analytics. So if I come up here under Analytics, we'll open that up in a new tab. So these are a lot of what you can do in a saved search, you can also do with Suite Analytics, but they provide a lot of additional capabilities. So let's come down here to revenue by customer. If we open that up, it's going to bring us to, you can kind of get a feel for what you can do with Suite Analytics. So this is just a standard workbook. So it's showing us the customer, the amount. We could play around with this as needed, but we can also build on additional things to this workbook. So we can come over here, we can take a look at a pivot table in relation to revenue by customer. Now, in this case, there's a relatively simple pivot table. We've just got customers and revenue. One of the benefits is that you can build these pivot tables out to be much more extensive and having multiple joins, which you could not be able to do on a normal save search. So that's one benefit. And another thing that many people overlook is the visual element that you get with Suite Analytics. So it's perfectly fine to go into save searches. You can get long listings, you can get values, numbers. It does that well. But if you want to get a chart, you want to get a pie graph, anything like that, that's where Suite Analytics really comes into play. And you can see here, we're looking at obviously by customer. We can easily configure this thing however we want, add different colors per customer, etc. So those are the three analytic tools. We've got standard reports, Save Searches, Suite Analytics. And overall, when it comes to reporting, I would say NetSuite does a great job. You can obviously always export things out to Excel if you prefer to deal with that. And there are some other plugins and apps that you can add on to NetSuite to even further enhance the reporting capabilities. You can utilize Power BI, any one of these other options. So that's from a reporting standpoint. Now let's talk about NetSuite from an accounting standpoint. And without question, accounting is where NetSuite shines. It was originally made to be accounting software. It was originally called NetLedger back in the 90s. And over time, it has remained the strongest module with NetSuite. So if we just kind of hover over, I'm not going to dive into the specific tools. You can, again, look at any one of my videos where I dive into billing and accounts receivable and all of these various elements. But you can see these things listed out here. You have enormous capabilities from an accounting standpoint. You can take a look at revenue recognition. You can get into amortizations, accruals, fixed asset management and depreciations, bank reconciliations, the whole 9 yards. You have all these capabilities built into NetSuite. Another benefit that I rarely hear discussed, but for me, it was immediately apparent when I ever had to deal with the other ERP systems, is that NetSuite takes a more modern approach to accounting. And without getting too into the weeds in terms of what that means exactly, if you're dealing with something like QuickBooks or Xero, which again, they also have a pretty modern approach to accounting, which I would say is efficient and fast. Moving and transitioning from those types of products to NetSuite, you're going to find that to be a smooth transition, as opposed to if you're dealing with other products like Microsoft Dynamics with Business Central or their other product F&O, or even something like SAP's S/4HANA, where they have a little bit more of a traditional approach where they separate the creation of transactions, like let's say a bill, and the posting of those bills, where you actually have the financial impact. In a lot of other ERP systems, they split those two things, whereas in NetSuite, they're all streamlined together. It makes it way easier to use, way easier to comprehend. It's a cleaner system. Now, I wouldn't say that NetSuite is better from an accounting standpoint across the boards. There are a couple tool sets that I do feel like other systems do better, especially if you're looking at something like QuickBooks and you're moving on to NetSuite. Things like bank reconciliations. The bank reconciliation tool in QuickBooks is way better than when dealing with NetSuite, which tends to be finicky. It can break often. It can be a headache to set up in the first place. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's not 100% the best. It just tends to be very strong from an accounting standpoint. Now let's take a look at NetSuite from a CRM standpoint. And honestly, there's not that much I want to show you, but just kind of talk about it more generally. NetSuite is solid with CRM. It does a good job. It's stable. It has, I would say, a fair amount of functionality. It's just not fancy. If you're used to Salesforce, HubSpot, any one of these tools that is really built for CRM, that has all kinds of bells and whistles, and they're very intuitive, they're fast, that's where you're going to start running into some problems with NetSuite, because NetSuite, first off, is not known for being fast. So things like easily being able to pull up reports or look into a particular customer and add notes into that, it's just not going to be able to be done rapidly. You can come over here to activities and you can tag in things like events, tasks, phone calls, calendars. It's all just a little bit clunky. So if you're used to something that's super fast, very intuitive, lots of bells and whistles, that's just not what NetSuite's for. It doesn't have that kind of capability. So if you want to maybe bring in an integration with something like HubSpot, you absolutely can. What you're going to get out of the box with NetSuite is just going to be enough to get the job done. They've got prospect records. You can attach notes to them. You can schedule things. You can send quotes, estimates, have those then generate into customers. You have all the basic functionality there. And if I come over here and click on customers, you've got these kind of customer dashboards. There's also what are called like customer 360 dashboards, where one particular customer, you can look at all kinds of different information about them, the last sales they've had, the ones that they prefer, how much they've sold in the last month compared to previous months. There's all kinds of these out of the box features that will come with NetSuite. It's just not as flashy, as intuitive as you're going to have with some of these other kind of dedicated CRM products. So that's the only thing I'm going to say from a CRM standpoint. I've seen some customers be completely happy with NetSuite from a CRM standpoint. Others will feel like it can be a major step back for their sales team. And so oftentimes they'll just keep what they have from a sales standpoint and they'll just integrate that in with NetSuite. And plenty of clients take that approach. Next up, let's talk about inventory management. And in this particular account, this is a services demo account. So I'm actually going to switch over to a manufacturing account over here. And this manufacturing account has some inventory management capabilities. It also has obviously some manufacturing capabilities. So when we come here, and I'm going to close these other tabs, in this account, from an inventory management standpoint, let's open up a particular item here. So this brings us to a list of items, and let's open up just any one of these. We've got this monitor mount. If I open that up, when it comes to inventory management in NetSuite, it is, I guess you could say similar to CRM. It gets the job done, nothing fancy. If you've got more elaborate warehouse management requirements, you need mobile scanners that can go in, you've got zones and picking that's done based on a priority system. That's where NetSuite's going to struggle a little bit. Now, that's not to say that you have no other option. There are other products like RF Smart. These are third-party apps that you can integrate in with NetSuite, and they can provide a lot of those additional requirements that you need. If you're dealing with logistics, etc., things like RF Smart can be amazing. There are other products. RF Smart really tends to dominate from a NetSuite standpoint. But if you don't have those requirements, if you don't need something crazy elaborate from your warehouse perspective, then you can get a lot done with NetSuite's inventory management system. So we're looking at one particular item. You can obviously put in all the basic information. Down here, there's entire tabs and functionality from a purchasing standpoint. How are you selling and pricing that thing? Details and accounting tie-in with the inventory. You can take advantage of the MRP system. I have an entire course on MRP for NetSuite. It's highly functional. It gets the job done as long as you don't have those more complex WMS requirements. And again, if you do, you can lean on some of these third-party options. So a lot that's built into that. Now, when looking at it from a manufacturing standpoint, this is where I think we start to get into areas that NetSuite is particularly not known for. So if you're dealing with manufacturing, first off, if you have just simple work order and then you go straight to building and assembly and that's it, it's a very simple setup. You simply tell the system, I want to build something, it's built and that's it. NetSuite can absolutely do that. If you've got outsourced manufacturing, also known as contract manufacturing, you might know it as co-manufacturing, where you have another facility separate from your company that is building the product for you and is often shipping these things out to customers or to another storage location, NetSuite can absolutely do that side of things perfectly fine. It has the capabilities. It can keep track of your items, your BOMs, your manufacturing process, no problem. If you're dealing with WIP and routing, you've got a more complex advanced manufacturing system that is in-house, that's where NetSuite starts to fall down. I wouldn't say that it can't do it, because it absolutely can. It just has limitations. It's very rigid. So if you've got an advanced, more complex manufacturing process, you're not going to be able to kind of craft NetSuite to fit your process. It's going to force you to fit your round peg into its square hole. So that's where you, again, if you want to rely on a third-party application, there are things like Smart Factory, Fuse, these manufacturing execution systems that can bring in that functionality, but it's just something to keep in mind. If a core part of your business is the manufacturing process and you're doing discrete scheduling with workstations and you want to look at the efficiency of particular employees at those stations, these are things that NetSuite is just not known for, and it's probably not going to be the best fit for you. Now, a couple last things I want to talk about before we jump out of this video entirely. First off, AI. And from a system standpoint, I could come up here. You've got things like guided selling. There's a couple little AI tools that are built in. However, I would say that your viewpoint on AI, at least at the moment that I'm filming this, should be that it's a wipeout. They've got these little features, but they're just not that helpful. They're not that useful. And there's a good reason for the fact that really there's nothing significant done from an AI standpoint in NetSuite. And that's because Oracle NetSuite as a company has been putting their AI efforts into their next generation product, which is called NetSuite Next. And I've got videos on NetSuite next. I'll be coming out with many more, as well as full-fledged courses on NetSuite next, which does have AI capabilities. But when we're talking about the NetSuite that we're looking at here, which is just standard NetSuite, it just doesn't have anything to write home about. So if you're hoping to incorporate a lot of AI in here, this is not the tool that's going to be doing it. And frankly, to be completely fair to Oracle NetSuite, nor does any other ERP system that I've seen so far. If you're looking at SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, Epicor, Infor, they all talk about AI constantly, but none of them are actually doing anything at this moment significant to actually make the system more effective or more efficient by use of AI. They just haven't gotten to that point yet. So hopefully that changes in the near future. But at this point, Oracle NetSuite is just like the competition to the degree that it hasn't provided anything significant. All right, so that's your look at NetSuite and some of the key business areas in relation to NetSuite. If you are looking at it as a product, you want to get more information, you can check out any one of my other YouTube videos on NetSuite, including how to implement it, how to handle the pricing, try to get the best price you can, and also how to choose the best consulting partner. That is a major aspect of having a successful NetSuite implementation. And if you'd like to reach out to me with further questions, you can feel free to do that. You can either leave them down in the comments below or on my supertraining.cloud website. I have contact forms and you can reach out to me. I answer everything personally, so feel free if you have any questions. And with all that in mind, if this video was helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I hope to see you in the next video.